All right, traders, welcome to today's recap. This is Christian Fromhertz of Tribeca Trade Group, and it is Monday, March 25th. And I would classify today as Whipsaw Monday. I think there was a lot of whipsaws going on, a lot of fake moves started to go one direction, both to the downside and to the upside as well. And it seems like once the market really started to move in one direction, it just boom, just stopped and reversed and went the other way. And it was like, okay, we're going to go to that side and failed to go there, and basically just ended the day right where we started in S&P futures. So, which was what, down about 10 basis points. All in all, not that bad. I think overnight we were down about, what, 50, 60 basis points at the worst. Again, false moves all over the place just looking at the 5-minute chart in S&P futures today. So it just tells me a lot of indecision on which way today people wanted the market to move. I heard a little bit about on Bloomberg they were talking about CTA models. Maybe they were starting to flip to short. And then intraday that kind of flipped, so that could be the reason why you saw some of that whipsaw move today, because it's, are we going to roll over? Are we going to chop around? Are we going to just have a couple days of digestion and then move back higher? I think all these things are in the cards, and you just have to let it play out a little bit. And I know that's not easy to do if you're an active trader like me. I manage a trading room all day long, so it's difficult for me to kind of say, hey, I'm going to wait a little bit. But sometimes that's better to do. Today, unless you're like a really, really awesome scalper, because there definitely was some trades to do, as long as you had like, a 15 or 20-minute time frame, you could make money in those. That's not really my area of expertise. Will I take some of those trades a little bit? Sure. I did that in a couple trades this morning, Lunar, and I did that in Qs, both on the long side, and that worked out very well for me. But I wasn't greedy in both those trades. That's got off to a nice start at the beginning of the day. Anything after that I traded just was a little bit too tough, and then I just finally said at the end of the day, I'm not going to trade any more of this because it's just a little bit too sketchy. So let's give a quick summary. Besides S&P, what some of the things that I watch when there's a little bit of increase in volatility, and then I'll get to some single names too. But I want to start with equities and bonds. I think really what a lot of people have their eyes on, including myself, is the small caps, because the small caps often lead market moves. They also are a good gauge of risk appetite. And the small caps were down on the day about 50, 60 basis points. Again, a fake move in the first 5 or 10 minutes. We sold off and took out the lows, and then we just rallied straight back like crazy. And then just to kind of give that all the way back to basically here, we tucked in right around the bottom of value. It looked like we were going to break down again for the day, and then buyers come back in and step in. So a really decent range, again, for day trading purposes, because all in all, this was down 60 basis points, and this was up 1.1. So a bigger move in the small caps than in S&P. Same thing, Nasdaq whipped around a bit, but I think small caps, I think, if you're, I'll just say it one more time, if you're big on day trading, I think you can really capitalize on these moves in the small caps right now rather than in the Qs or S&P, because I think they're just, the volatility is there. So so we did end up positive today, up 45 basis points. So all in all, of course, the end of day, the last print, the closing print is always the most important over the intraday action for swing trading as well as medium to long term trading as well. IWM, it didn't really do much, right? I mean, you kind of have almost a doji candle. This is not a hammer bar. We're still below value. So again, I think you have to just give it a little bit more time in order to make, or at least for me anyway, I can't really draw a lot of conclusions from today. Somebody asked me about midday in the trading room. What are the odds are that we go up tomorrow? I have no clue right now, and I think I would rather tell people that. If you're a member of Tribeca Trade Group, I would rather tell you I don't know than make up something and it be wrong. Or say, I've heard some jackasses, sorry, to say, oh, well, I would give it a 40% chance that we're up tomorrow or something stupid. Just say you don't know. Because I think you just need a little bit more. So I would rather really not try to guess day to day what the market is going to do. I would rather kind of take away what you can from it, and I don't think there's much to really take away from today's price action. I think we could still end up lower tomorrow, but we could also rebound. I just don't think there was really much to draw the conclusion from. You need a little bit more evidence of something that's kind of pulling us up. So again, I think maybe a stay of execution for the small caps up 45 basis points, and they can flip tomorrow and outperform. Again, I just think that's the way it is right now. I think the option activity not really telling us too much there either. Let me go over to the Qs while I'm chatting, but a lot of index puts being bought today. But there was a lot of single stock flow as well. So both, you could make a case for either with looking at the option activity today, because they really went after some puts today. And I think the put call ratio was heavy to the put side as well. But there were some really good looking trades on the long side too. So people were taking their spots. And basically that's kind of what I do. I mean, and I talked about this a lot in the weekend newsletter. I try to put as much as I can into this, basically saying, just to give it a little bit more time. I even used a Microsoft example saying I would actually welcome a little bit more of a pullback because it just ends up being a great place to buy. I think newer traders and traders that haven't been around that much, they get really worried. They're like, oh my God, we could move to the downside. I think if we continue to move a little bit more to the downside, it's going to create some really good buying opportunities. You just have to kind of give yourself a little bit of a chance, to be patient to take advantage of those. But if you're constantly buying and worried about that happening, you can't really relish when it does happen, because many times it creates some really good buying opportunities. I just want to see the small caps lead. So here's my kind of blueprint for what I would be looking for, right? And why I need a little bit more evidence. So before I do that, let me just look at the bonds, which I thought were crazy today. They, we were looking at this, and I did not pull the trigger on a trade, but I watched the bonds, which were kind of dormant for the first half of the day. But right around 12:30, they got outside of value. And they were up at 1.80 basis points, which is a huge move for bonds. And then, they gave it all back around 2 o'clock. And I think there were a couple bond auctions, but I don't know if it was really enough to move. But how can you really make a determination when you see bonds move up 80 basis points that you really want to get involved and get aggressive on the market? So again, I think just give it a little bit of time to work its way out, because you really don't want to get caught. If the market does end up getting hit a little bit further, that's going to hurt. That's going to hurt your P&L quite a bit. So, and I don't think you have to rush into this market this second. I think you can just pick spots, and I do that in a couple names. But what I'm waiting for is for the bonds to stop doing moves like this, to stop ripping. I do like that they sold off to kind of give this toppy looking candle. The VIX was another thing that, if you look at, I think all the VIX instruments, I look at the three of them, right? There's the VIX for the S&P, there's the VXN for the VIX for the QQQ, and then there's the RVX, which is the VIX for the IWM. And in the morning, they were all up about 6%. They were about the same. And then they did the end of day fade. So again, that's a good thing. Again, I don't think that we're out of the woods, so maybe a little bit of a reversal bar here. But again, I think you just need a little bit more evidence. You could also look at the VVIX, which is the VIX, the volatility for the VIX itself. Again, not much to really go on here. So now if we continue to move in this direction, I think great. And the end of day VIX crush, I think, is a good sign as well. So there are some good signs, I think, at the end of the day. Rather than have us close on the lows of the day. But again, just not a lot to hang your hat on in terms of long. So what I would be looking for is, yeah, maybe the VVIX to kind of sell off a little bit more, to show a little bit more of a toppy candle. The VIX to kind of break down. The VIX, like I said, I think was a step in the right direction. It did not close on the highs. It actually finished from where it started the day, finished down about 1% on the day. So again, that's good. I want the small caps to lead, which again they did a little bit today. I just don't think it's enough to draw that conclusion on. And I think bonds, I said already. Did I look at the Qs yet? Yeah, the Qs were underperforming for most of the day, and they hung in there quite fine too. So again, I think you just want to give, I keep saying the same thing, sorry, but I think just give it maybe another day for that evidence to be a little bit more confirming, right? We like confirmation. So let's talk about a few other things that happened today. I'll talk about a couple of the day trades that I did today. When you see bonds, the one thing that's very good for the bonds is, for home builders, is rates lower, right? That makes homes more affordable. So when TLT goes up, rates go lower. And that this helps that group a lot. This was a day trade that I played today. Was Lennar calls right off the bat. I thought DHI also looked pretty good. I actually like the DHI chart a little bit better. Lennar was the one that I traded. And if you look at the whole group, the whole home builder group, I think it looks pretty good. I really do. Now, I think tomorrow we get more home data, so I think it was building off of Friday's really strong existing home sales. And the call buyer that we saw on Friday in Lennar and DHI, I thought was very good. XHB is the other ETF there. So again, you can find things even in a difficult tape. The XHB was okay. I had all these in the weekend newsletter. Again, what I really try to do for traders is get them to have a little bit of a trading plan in some areas like the home builders. I was also looking at consumer discretionary in the weekend newsletter as well, which I did not trade today because again, I just didn't want to go crazy without seeing more confirmation. But XLY did pretty decent today. That's a definite ETF that I'm watching. But these were all pretty good setups in the weekend newsletter. So again, that's my goal, is to kind of give people a trading plan so they can go into Monday and kind of look at some names that may be a little bit different, that may catch some momentum, and then of course to have another frame of reference of areas to watch so that you can gauge the overall risk level of the market. People are adding risk or basically taking it off. Let me talk a little bit about, so those were two. I also scalped some Qs on the low of the day, which worked really well as well. Boeing was interesting. Boeing, by the way, so you're not going to hear anybody talk about this. Why was Boeing up today? I think a very technical reason, not because of headlines, but there was a Virgin point of control that was taken out on Friday. This is something I've been talking about for weeks, and I really said I'm not going to play Boeing until, to a large scale, until this Virgin point of control gets taken out. So it got taken out on Friday. So I think that needed to be taken out, and you could see it rebound off that Virgin point of control. So again, very technical in nature. I'll throw this chart on Twitter later, but I think people seeing that Airbus got a contract from China, and they're like, geez, why is Boeing up? Well, we know why, because it took out a very important technical technical level that was left. So, every one of these candles got close to taking it, and finally it got taken out on Friday. So yeah, I think we could see some upside now that this level has been taken out for Boeing. All right, so let me give my 2 cents on Apple. I'll talk about Apple for maybe a minute. What happened with Apple today? So they announced some things. I don't know why traders, again, I'm not trying to criticize anybody, but this is the same. So I will say it again, just so that you can kind of get a feeling for this. But when Apple announces their event, and you could look, I'm sure there's data on this, I don't have it, but from the time that they announce that they're doing an app event or whatever the event that they had today, new product event, that's the time to buy Apple. And then you sell it the day of or the day before that the actual event happens. I saw a lot of people trying to play Apple today. I really, other than playing the dip, which I understand, but on the day itself is a sell the news event, and I can't stress that enough. It doesn't now. It's not 100% of the time. Maybe sometimes they do actually put out something that dazzles people, but for the majority of the time, the trade, if you're a trader, is to buy it the day that they announce when the event is, and then sell it the day before the event. It's textbook trading. Buy the rumor and sell the news. Same thing. Somebody asked me. So again, if you're not familiar with this principle, it's okay. But this is something that you want to realize on days like this when Apple goes, oh, why did it go down 1.2%? Because it has all that expectations that they're going to announce something really great, and when they don't, the stock sells off. Netflix. Somebody said, well, why is Netflix up today? They announced, the video service today because we've known about it for the last 3 weeks that Apple's going to do this. So if it's not that much of a threat, or even if it is, it's going to provide a little bit of a relief bounce. Because again, I don't think it's as bad as what everybody thought. So, maybe a stock to watch in the coming days because it really could not do much other than towards the end of the middle of last week. But it doesn't sound like they're going to be much of a threat, at least right away to Netflix. Again, my opinion. I will also say my other 2 cents about Apple is that it seems like they're doing more things to capture more of the pie with their competitors, like the profit pie, rather than putting out new products that will increase the size of the pie, right? Which is innovation. Instead, it seems like they're fighting more with their competitors to capture the existing, world with services like, rolling out a credit card and making it convenient. I get it. They're also playing for the long game too, right? They want to capture all these services so that, they have the best platform, which is the iPhone, to do all these services. So it makes sense for them to do it. But is it dazzling? No, not really. It's probably something that they need to be doing because that's the direction that everyone is going is complete mobile. But this is more fighting for the same pie rather than increasing the size of the pie by creating innovate or having innovation. So that's my thoughts for Apple for the day. I want to go over quickly 5 option trades for the day, besides all the put activity that we saw, which again was a lot of IWM puts that went up. MRVL, I bought a little bit of these. We've seen a lot of call buying in MRVL. Today it felt like a dip because I think when I did buy it, it was a little bit further down. Listen, there's been so many of these MRVL calls that at this point, I don't mind taking a small trade just to see what the hell they're up to. Because God forbid something happens great in MRVL and I'm not in it and I saw all this call activity. so it's probably a little bit of FOMO and I didn't put on a big position, but you could see they keep going after very out of the money type stuff in MRVL, and that's what they've been doing for the last 2 weeks now. A few other names that we saw. I mentioned Home Depot. I put a trade on. I was not able to. I was trying to get a 15% profit target. It's still, as long as it's above this line, even though not the best looking candle in the world today for Home Depot, but I still like it here as long as it's above 200-day moving average and above value and that trend line. So I've got a couple different things going on right there. We did see some calls go up again in Home Depot. I've got that one highlighted. Coop, these are areas that I want to start watching. I did not add the trade today, but interesting in another software play, probably in digestion mode at this point. Try to go higher towards the end of last week and failed, but right back into support. So as long as it holds this 50-day moving average, again, a name that I'll be watching for tomorrow. Just don't need to put on a ton of trades into today. Again, I did my fair share of nibbling, but no need to kind of load the boat just because the markets have been down for a day or two. A couple other trades, NRG. We saw this twice today. Got some calls here at the end of the day too. Some short-term calls, which is generally what we see for again, something a little bit different, but oil name. It had a reversal bar on Friday, but did pretty well at fighting back today. Last name that I'll say in this one is SVMK. If you're not familiar with this one, I'll bring up the description. We had this one as well in the weekend newsletter. SV, not a great symbol to remember. To be honest, I don't know, maybe senior vice president, you think, or something. But anyway, this is another application software name. They have a platform which enables organizations to collect and analyze feedback. Kind of sounds like Splunk to me, but it's a small cap name. And I had, like I said, I had this in the newsletter this weekend. I went long today, and I'll use that 20-day moving average to go long. But that's a couple times now. And here's the trade. We saw a couple different orders. SV, again, it's going to take me some time to get used to this symbol. But you could see not huge trades, but it is a small cap trade. And I like the fact that they're going out to July. They also bought a little bit of the near term stuff. Again, really, really small. This I wouldn't ignore because it's $12,000. That could be anybody. But I like the July action. It tells me that they're thinking a little bit more longer term than just a couple weeks out. All right, so that's a quick recap on option activity as well. Thanks for watching the video. I think you got my message that basically Rome wasn't built in a day. Just be patient, give it a couple days. That was my main message in the weekend newsletter. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great night.